On this Resurrection Sunday, let me ask you a question. What do you think of when you hear the words too late? Too late. To me, it often has a sad tone, like it's too late to win the game. The other team is already too far ahead. Or it's too late to go to that movie. It already started. Or if you like broccoli chicken casserole, which I do, the kind that comes from a Cracker Barrel, and you wait too late on Wednesdays and you get there anytime past 6:30, the waitress will look to you and say, it's too late. It's sold out. And you may be wondering, why in the world would broccoli chicken casserole sell out? Because broccoli is not even something I would order. If I go into, I don't naturally order broccoli. I think there was a president one time that didn't like it, and I agree with him. Anyway, the broccoli people got mad at him, but that's beside the point. But if you put enough cheese and butter and cracker crumbs on anything, even broccoli can be your friend. Anyway, but sometimes those words too late are more disturbing, aren't they? It's too late. You wanted the position, but it's been filled. Or maybe you've heard the words, or somebody in your family has heard the words, it's too late. The cancer has spread too far. The words too late often denote missed opportunities, missed chances. It can even have a hint of finality to it. It's too late. There's no going back. That's why I was intrigued a year ago, a couple of years ago, I don't even remember now, when I heard a song by C.C. Winans called It's Too Late to Lose. Because when I hear those words, too late, I think of the negative. I think naturally of it's too late to get that job. It's too late to get, it's too late to say what I wanted to say to that person. They've gone or they moved away. Or it's too late to get to lunch because Tom smoked too long. But not too late to lose. And I want to thank our band because they're going to come back at the end today and we're going to end with that song, Too Late to Lose. And if you haven't heard it, I hope that it will bless your life today. But as I thought about God's Word in this Easter weekend, there are a lot of times in Scripture where people thought it was too late. Certainly on that first Easter Sunday and the Good Friday, Peter, Andrew, James, and John certainly thought it was too late. But an empty tomb and a risen Savior and Jesus alive changed that forever. But they were not the first to believe it might be too late. Joseph thought it was too late to ever discover his purpose. That is, until he finds himself second in command in all of Egypt. Moses thought it was too late for him to get his people out of Egypt and slavery. That is, until he met God in a burning bush. Jairus, the synagogue ruler whose little girl Jesus would raise from the dead, thought it was too late until Jesus cleared the room and looked at her and said, "Little girl, I say to you, get up." Peter thought it was too late for a relationship after denying Jesus, on that night that he was betrayed. And yet, a night on a beach and a picnic by Jesus in the Sea of Galilee changed that. The blind man at the gate thought it was too late until Jesus touched his eyes. And Mary and Martha, the sisters of Lazarus, not only thought it was too late for their brother Lazarus, they thought Jesus was too late. And I want their story to set the stage for our Easter message today. It's found in John chapter 11. We'll begin in verse 1. Now, a man named Lazarus was sick. He was from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. And right off the bat, you find out that Mary and Martha are sisters. Martha, by most scholars, is thought to be the oldest, probably because she's the one doing all the work and she's a little bit bossy. Mary, the middle child, well, she's thought to be the middle child because she's just kind of laid back, chilling at the feet of Jesus, And then the reason John mentions this is because Lazarus, who many people believe to be their little brother, probably because he's the center of attention right here in this story, all of that, you find out that Mary, Martha, and Lazarus are friends of Jesus. Most scholars believe that their home in Bethany would have been the home away from home for Jesus while he was on earth. And they know Jesus well. They have seen the crowds that walk with Jesus. They have witnessed the miracles that Jesus has done. And they call Jesus not just their rabbi, they call Jesus their friend. So in light of this relationship they have with Jesus, verse 3 is not really a surprise. So the sisters sent word to Jesus. And very quickly we learn that their brother is not just sick with a cold or not just sick with something that they think he's going to overcome on his own. He's facing a life or death illness. And they know that Jesus has healed others. They have seen it. So they send words to Jesus, the friend who has slept in their house, the friend who has eaten from their table, the friend who has sought refuge from the crowd in their home. And what do you think will be the basis of their plea to garner the attention of Jesus? Verse 3, Jesus, the one you love, is sick. Mary and Martha. Jesus, the one you love. They don't even have to say his name. They knew that if they just say Jesus, the one you love, they knew that he knew that they were talking about their brother Lazarus. And Mary and Martha are convinced that what will move the heart of Jesus more than anything else is not how much their brother loved Jesus, but how much Jesus loved their brother. And right here at the beginning of this story, we find out something about Savior and cross and nails and Easter Sunday. That all of those things were never based on our love for God, but they were based on God's love for us. Maybe it's the reason that John didn't write, "For the world so loved God." Because if God waited for the world to love him, well, there's a lot of the world that would never get loved back. God didn't wait on the world to love him. No, John writes, "For God so loved the world that he did what people who are in love do. He gave what was most precious to him." Amazing thought this Easter, isn't it, that God loved you. And God loved you and he loved me before there was a you and a me to love. That he loved us before there was a love for us, before there was an us to love. And his love for you and his love for me wasn't based on some contractual obligation. It wasn't based on something, well, if Tom does this, and Tom makes all the right choices, and Tom makes sure to get everything right and in its place, if Tom reaches this milestone or that milestone and jumps over that hoop, then I'll love Tom. You know what? He did not consult me before he died for me. He did not ask me if I thought it was a good idea. He simply chose to live out what love really looks like. And Mary and Martha write this sentence to Jesus, but it's really a sentence with an expectation, isn't it? Jesus, the one you love, is sick. And the expectation is that Jesus will come do for their brother Lazarus what Jesus has done for others. So what will Jesus say? Verse 4, when he heard this, Jesus said, "The sickness will not end in death." Which had to be of some comfort to Peter, Andrew, James, and John, and the other disciples who loved Lazarus, because they loved Lazarus as well. And so Jesus gives the messenger a message for Mary and Martha. And he says, "I want you to go tell them this. The sickness will not end in death." And then John inserts just a fact into the story. Verse 5, he says, "Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus." And in light of verse 5, well, verse 6 might be a little bit hard to understand. "So when he heard that Lazarus was sick, Jesus stayed where he was 2 more days." If we're honest, that's the part of the story where a lot of people get hung up, isn't it? That's the part of the story where a lot of people will jump ship or walk away. Anybody here ever really need God to show up for you in a certain way or in a certain time, and you feel like he let you down? That you wanted him there and he was nowhere to be seen? And I can see the messengers, can't you? "So Jesus, you're not coming?" "Not yet." "And you know this is Lazarus, the one you love?" "Yeah." "The brother of Mary and Martha?" "Yeah." "The one you've been in their house and eaten their food and slept in their bed?" "Yeah." "And you're not coming?" "Not yet." In fact, Jesus lets 2 days pass, and then he says this in verse 7. Then he said to his disciples, "Let us go back to Judea." Which seems like a simple statement, but all of a sudden, in light of verse 8, you realize that these guys are confused because they remember something that they think Jesus has forgotten. If you go back to John chapter 9 and John chapter 10, you find out that because of the immense crowds that are following Jesus, that he is already a hunted man. That he has already gotten the attention of the religious leaders, and they are already seeking ways to put him to death. Not only are they already seeking ways to put him to death, they have already made an attempt on his life, and the disciples know that. Verse 8, "But Rabbi," they said, "a short while ago the Jews there tried to stone you, and you want to go back?" Which doesn't make any sense to them. They're like, "I hate to bring this up, and I certainly don't want to question anything that you want us to do, Jesus, and none of us want to be a doubting Thomas." Sorry, Thomas, spoiler alert. "But the last time you were there, they tried to stone you." They are understandably hesitant to go back to a place where they are in danger. So verse 11, Jesus just went on to tell them, "Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, and I'm going there to wake him up." And in their human view of life and death, they say, well, Lord, if he is only sleeping, well, guess what? He will wake up. And without even knowing it, they express heaven's idea that death is really only sleeping, and it carries with it a certainty that if you are only sleeping, you will wake up. So then Jesus just tells them plainly. He means in a way they can understand. In a human point of view, Lazarus is dead. To which again they have to say, what? Lazarus is dead? I thought you just sent the messenger back to Mary and Martha with this message that this illness will not end in death. And now you're telling us he's gone? And Jesus is like, yes. And then he makes one of the most shocking statements at all. And for your sake, I am glad I wasn't there. Can you see the look of the confusion on the disciples' faces? Jesus, we don't understand. You're glad you weren't there when Lazarus died? You're glad you weren't there when Mary and Martha needed you in that moment? Jesus, why would you say that? And how could our waiting around, what were we waiting for? Just waiting here, evidently for Lazarus to die? How could that be for our sake? And then Jesus answers something that he will go on to explain. Jesus answers verse 15. I'm glad for your sake that I wasn't there, so that you may believe. So that you may believe. And I think he's saying, because Peter, there will come a day when you stand where Mary and Martha stand today. And on that day, I need you to remember something about this day. Because John, there will come a day when they take your brother out and they take off his head for believing in me. And on that day, I need you to see and believe in something greater than death. Because Andrew, there will be a day that you bury a parent or you bury a child. And when you do, there is something I need you to hold on to in that moment. So guys, this isn't really about me being harsh, and it isn't about me trying to be unkind. It really is for your sake. And if I could fast forward to 2025, maybe Jesus is saying to us today, Tom, I'm glad for your sake too. Because Tom, there will come a day when you stand at the casket of a friend. There will come a day when you stand at the casket of a parent or even a grandson. And on that day, Tom, I want you to believe in something greater than what you see right in front of you. Tom, on that day, I want you to believe in who I'm going to show myself to be this day for Mary and Martha. And so for the sake of every child who has buried a parent, or every parent who has buried a child, for the sake of every husband who has buried a wife, or wife who has buried a husband, and for the sake of every friend who has ever buried a friend, Jesus says, I'm glad I wasn't there for Lazarus on that day, because Tom, on that day when it seems like your life is falling apart and it seems like your world has gone dark, and when it seems like I'm too far away and too late, I need you to not only know but believe that the sickness will not end in death. Tom, as you think of death, on that day, I need you to believe in me. And Tom, for your sake, I'm glad I wasn't there when Lazarus died, because when you see what I'm about to do for Lazarus this day, I want you to believe that I will do that for everyone in the last day. He continues in verse 17. On his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. And when Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him. And she said, Lord, Martha said to Jesus, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Translation, it's too late. It's too late, Jesus. Really, this is your fault. You could have been here, but you were not. You could have made a difference, but you did not. Is there anyone in the house right now who can relate to Martha's pain? Is there anyone in the house who can feel what Martha was feeling in that moment? She says something, verse 22, she says, but I know that even now God will give you whatever you ask. And while that is true, isn't it true sometimes you can make a statement and not know the implication of that statement? What she says is right. His father would give him anything he would ask. And I think Jesus just smiles as he looks to her in verse 23. And because there's a thought going on in his head, I think, because I think he's about to say, you have no idea, Martha, what I'm about to ask the Father for. He looks to her in verse 23 and says, Martha, your brother will rise again. And at that moment, Martha assumes that Jesus is saying to her what every one of us say when we don't know what to say at a funeral. It's going to be okay. You have your memories. Remember the good times. All things happen for a purpose. And Martha, one day, far away, your brother will rise again. Verse 24, is it really what she says? Well, I know, Jesus. I know he'll rise again in the resurrection at the last day. Jesus, I know that everything you said is exactly what we say when somebody dies. Well, at least they're in a better place. There, at least we know where they are. You know that and I know that. And we'll get to see them again one day. And Jesus looks to his friend Martha and says, you have no idea what you're saying. And you certainly don't understand what I'm saying. Martha, verse 25, I am the resurrection. I am the life, the one who believes in. And that little phrase, believes in, is not just believes that. Because you can believe that, a lot of stuff. But if it doesn't change your life, if it doesn't internalize within you, it is just a fact. He says, I'm not giving you a word to just believe that. Martha, I'm talking about someone you can believe in. And Martha, the one who believes in me, I know you're not going to understand this, will live even though they die the way you see death. And whoever lives and believes in, puts their trust in me. Martha, guess what? They will never really die. No way to take all that in the time that we have left. But I think Jesus is saying this. Martha, now that Lazarus is gone, you think you're just waiting around for one day for the resurrection. One day when however God ends this world, that's what you're waiting for. Martha, you need to know something. The resurrection is standing right in front of you. Martha, you think Lazarus' life has gone and it's over and done? I'm telling you, Martha, the life is right in front of you. I am the life. So Martha, if you believe in me and you really believe that I could raise your brother on the last day, would it help your faith, Martha, if I raised your brother this day? And to all the Jews who are out there wondering if I am the Messiah, if you really believe that the Messiah, when he comes, can raise the dead, would it help you to believe that I am really the one that God sent if I raise your friend, your brother from the dead today? Verse 26, he looks at Martha and says, do you believe it, Martha? Because in the end, I'm not really asking you if you believe I can raise him that day. I'm asking you if I could raise him this day. And if you think I can raise him this day, time is nothing with me. You need to know something. I could raise him on that day as well. And Martha's response is, again, I'm not sure if I know everything you're telling me right now, Jesus, about this, but there's one thing that I believe. Verse 27, yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Messiah. You are the Son of God who has come into the world. Again, she had the right answer, didn't she? But as of yet, she still doesn't understand exactly what that means. The band is going to make their way back up on stage now because, again, we're going to end with a song, and I hope you love it, Too Late to Lose. But Martha goes back to the house. She gets her sister Mary, and they, along with the other friends who have come to this place to see Jesus, listen to what, or to be a comfort, they come out and they see Jesus. Verse 33, when Jesus saw her weeping, when he saw Martha weeping, and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and trouble. And he asked, where have you laid him? Come and see, Lord, they replied. And then verse 35, Jesus, well, if you know a little bit about the structure in which John is writing there, he's writing a narrative, and really there's the first half of the story, there's another half of the story, and there's an interruption in the middle. Those two words, Jesus wept, are but two words, and they are really separate from these and separate from these. It's a fact that could have been there, could have been left out. John chose to leave it in. So I asked myself, what in the world would John be writing this story? John, who is writing it on the backside of it. So he knows as he's writing it, he knows what's about to happen. Why would he stop and just say, Jesus wept? And from our vantage point, why in the world would Jesus weep? He knew what he was about to do. He pauses, knowing that he was about to raise his friend from the dead, but he weeps. Maybe I could stay mad at Jesus if he'd been indifferent. Maybe I could be mad at Jesus if he just ran in and said, Martha, Mary, sorry I'm late. Maybe if he had given the impression that he really didn't care, maybe I could stay mad at him. But Jesus wept, knowing he's about to raise his friend from the dead. Why? I believe because in the moment when Jesus saw their grief and Jesus saw their sorrow, when he saw their brokenness, he didn't give them another message on theology. He didn't even really. Mary kept trying to turn it to the last day. And he says, Mary, there's something I want you to believe in greater than even resurrection or death on the last day. I want you to believe in the power of me this day. He doesn't do any of that stuff. He just simply puts his arms around them and he wept with them. He wept because he cared. I think he wept because he was angry in the moment over what death had caused the creation that he had made. It was not his idea. I think he wept over innocence that was lost. And I know, and probably you've heard people say, and I think after losing some very special people in my life over the last couple of years, I know it to be true. You don't often remember the words that people say in a moment of deep grief, but you do remember the faces, and you do remember that they wept with you. I remember when Barrett passed, and I remember standing right here. And I don't know that I could recall a single word that anyone said, but I can go right down in my mind and I can see every person who walked by and every person who reached up with a hug. All of those things. Verse 38, Jesus, once more deeply moved, came to the tomb. It was a cave with a stone laid across the entrance. Take away the stone, he said. But Lord, said Martha. And then I don't know about you, but I find this in the middle of my grief, I find this humorous, like it's John almost says, but Lord, said Martha. And then just to remind you who Martha is, he's the sister of the dead man. That's who we're talking about. And I don't know why I think that's funny, but I think Martha is like, it's too late, it's too late. By this time, Jesus, there's a bad odor, for he has been there 4 days. Mind you, this is the same Martha who just said, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. This is the same Martha that just said, hey, I think you could talk to God right now, and he would give you anything you ask for. I believe that you can do whatever you're about to do with Lazarus. I just don't know if there's something you can do about the smell. He's been in the grave 4 days. What are you going to do about the odor, Jesus? Verse 40, Jesus said, did I not tell you, Martha, that if you believe you will see the glory of God? Notice what he didn't say. He did not say that if you believe, you will see a miracle. Everybody there was going to see a miracle. Everybody there was going to see a dead man walk out of a grave. He didn't say if you believe you'll see a miracle. He said if you believe you'll see the glory of God. Because that's the difference in believing that and believing in. Because I can believe that and I can believe a bunch of facts all my life. Facts are good for filing. That's about what they are good for. Unless those facts lead you to believe in something greater than those facts. And Jesus looks and he says, Martha, on this day when the worst thing happens to you, I don't want to give you just a fact to believe. I want to give you somebody to put your faith in. And then Jesus says, move the stone away. And again, they freak out. They freak out because he's been there 4 days. Jesus is like, too late. His body is decaying. But Jesus, verse 41, just looks up into heaven and says, Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I know, when you pray, do you have this confidence in God? I know that you always hear me. So what I'm about to do, Father, what I'm about to say, Father, is for the benefit of the people standing here, that they may believe that you have sent me. I'm saying this, Father, so that the people standing out there now weeping in front of you will believe that you have sent me. I'm saying this so that Mary and Martha will not just believe that, but believe in me and trust in me. I'm saying this, I'm doing this because the day is coming when my guys out here, when Peter and Andrew and Nathaniel and Thomas and all of them, and my people way out in the future, Tom and Linda, Amber and Randy, fill in the blank with your name when you stand in front of a casket or you stand at a cemetery and you wonder if it's too late. I am doing this so that they can look back and remember this day and believe that what I told my disciples is absolutely the truth, that Lazarus has only fallen asleep. And if he has fallen asleep, and that's what death is before God, he will simply wake up. I'm asking you to believe in, put your trust in, that if I can raise your friend from the dead this day, that I can raise anybody from the dead on the last day. So, Father, for their benefit, I'm saying, and John says, he said in a loud voice that he looked and he said, Lazarus, come out. And you know how you're quiet? I think they were quiet until the next verse. And they saw the dead man come out. And then you know what I think they did? Anybody want to clap right now? Anybody want to cheer right now? Because we've heard the story and we think that's normal, don't we? But can you imagine if it was your brother, if it was your loved one, if it was someone there, and all of a sudden, boom, they came out. So how do I wrap this up? And how do I make this about Easter and all those things? What do we do? For so many years, let me tell you what Easter meant. Easter meant as a kid, I would get up and get, the Easter basket. And sometimes we would hunt eggs before church and then after church, but we would go to church. And as I grew up and I became a dad myself, and our kids were growing up, it meant the same thing. We'd have eggs and all these other things. And for Alana, it meant that she would get a new dress every year, which she hated. For Aaron, it meant that he would get these little shorts with suspenders and knee-high socks, which I hated. But it always meant going to church and singing some songs, then having lunch together and just being together as a family. Early this morning before I came in here, I drove to the little spot of land that Aaron and Kristen purchased for Barrett. And I prayed a little bit. I cried a little bit. I thought about my dad, and I thought about Linda's dad. And I thought about all the conversations I would love to have with that little boy. I played I Can Only Imagine on my cell phone, which made me cry a little bit more. And then I thought about resurrection and thought about Jesus. And this is just personal to me. Maybe it will be something you can take away with today. What does Easter mean to me? Well, it means that I can go out to that little piece of ground with full assurance that that little boy is really not there. It's just a body that was going to fade away one day anyway. The real him is only sleeping in the presence of Jesus, and I will see him again one day. Easter means that there's coming a day when I can grab him and kiss his little cheeks, and I can tell him how much his pop loved him. Easter means that one day, just like he told his disciples when they were disturbed that he was going away, and he looked at them and he said, I'm only going away for a little while. And if I go away for a little while, you can believe something. I'm coming back to get you. I'm going away to prepare a place for you. And I'll come back to get you, because where I am is where you were always meant to be. That he has made a place, and there's coming a day that I will see him, and we can sit down in that place, and we can talk, and we can talk, and we can talk. And then when I get ready to unlock the door and let Linda and the rest of the family in, then they can come in, and together we'll talk, and we'll talk, and we'll talk some more. And then you know what we'll do? All of us together will just get up, and together we'll walk right into the throne room of heaven because of the veil, the curtain that Jesus made a way for on that day. And we'll walk right into the presence of God, and we will bow before him, and we will worship him. We will have an eternity to laugh and to cry and to talk about all. We'll not cry because there are no tears in heaven, but to laugh and to laugh and to laugh and be together forever. That's what Easter means to me. That we will worship him for loving us so much that he would endure Good Friday to make Resurrection Sunday possible. So what is it that you think it's too late for? Too late to beat that addiction? Too late to be healed? Too late for a son to come home? Too late for a marriage? You see, there is one difference between the raising of Lazarus, the raising of the widow's son, the raising of Jairus' daughter, and the resurrection of Jesus. The difference is that all these on this side were raised to die again. They were a sign pointing to something else, that there is someone greater to believe in. And what a bummer for all of them. They get the presence of God for just a little bit. Got to go back, Mary, Martha, want you back there, Lazarus. But Jesus, raised to never die again. And on that Sunday morning 2,000 years ago, the question that the angel asked the women who had showed up at the now empty tomb of Jesus was this: why do you seek the living among the dead? He is not here, but he is risen. Don't you remember? He told you what. And all these incredible stories that we read about in the pages of Scripture are all leading to the most incredible moment in history. There is one who is risen to never die again. He is risen above what everybody said about him. He is risen about all the doubts all the way back then to our day that those who have doubted him. He is risen above the scandals that have been said about him. He is risen above the expectations even of his followers. He is risen above the powers of the entire Roman Empire. He is risen above the sham trials of the Sanhedrin court. He is risen above the Pharisees. He is risen above the Sadducees. And most of all, Paul would say, he is risen above death. He is risen above hell. He is risen above the grave. He has taken, as Paul would say, the sting out of death and the victory out of the grave. And he has promised that he was only the first who will come out of a tomb, not to rise again, not to die again, but to never die again. He was the firstborn. There was only one thing on that first Easter Sunday that it was too late for. It was too late for us to lose. The victory had already been won. From Jesus to you, happy Easter.